Hello and welcome to my alternative spring tour. Today I'd like to introduce my wife, Marg, and together we're going to share this reading because we shared the holiday. And it's a reading from a section in the book called Travel, Marrakesh Express. Our most spectacular Moroccan trip was our own version of the Marrakesh Express in the winter of 2007. Martha Gellhorn would doubtless have included this in her journeys from hell.
There is something magical in the air in Essaouria, and as with most places, I would recommend you go and experience it for yourself. Our first visit was in the December of that year. We had planned our holiday meticulously, leaving home in Kent and going by Eurostar to Paris. Having been there a few times, we would only stay in Paris for an afternoon, before going on to Madrid by sleeper train, where we would have a whole day. Then another train to Algeciras, a night in a hotel, and across to Tangier on a morning hydrofoil, where we would spend a day before getting another overnight train to Marrakesh and a car to Essaouira, to spend a week sunning ourselves, recovering, revelling in the romance of the journey we had just undertaken.
But it didn't quite work out like that. This was the December when snow stopped play and Eurostars. We only realised a day or two before that there were likely to be cancellations on the first stage of our journey, but with the enterprising support of friends, we secured first-class tickets on a ferry crossing from Dover to Calais after a short train journey from home. Dover ferry terminal was like a cattle market, with thousands of people fighting to find tickets to get to wherever home was for Christmas. Once in Calais, we had to walk through knee-deep snow with our trolley bags to a hotel we had had the foresight to book. We were accompanied by a sorry little band of waifs and strays, also including a father and son trying to get home to Israel. I hope they made it.
Our travel plans already gone awry, but confident we could get them back on track the next morning. We got a train to Paris, crossed the city of love to leave our bags at the Gare d'Austerlitz station, returning early evening to board our 8 p.m. train for the Spanish capital.
By which time I was feeling rather queasy.
We waited and waited, only to be told that we would have to travel to Tours by coach as there had been a derailment. We eventually left at 11 p.m.
I held on to my stomach and hoped very much for the best, the toilets in the coach being out of service.
We got to Tours and transferred to our sleeper train. It duly arrived in Madrid on the appointed morning, but several hours later than scheduled. We dashed off to the Museo Reina Sofia to see Picasso's Guernica, one of the main reasons for choosing a stop-off in Madrid, only to find it closed.
Warning. Many places close on a Monday. Do not make plans for a Monday when travelling.
So we hopped over to the Prado for a brief look and to fulfil our tradition of buying mugs in foreign museums, and gave in to a desire to spend the remainder of the afternoon eating tapas and dining Rioja. Then we went back to the railway station to collect our bags and catch our train for half of our journey until we had to get off and pick up another coach on to Algeciras.
We stayed the night in Spanish splendour in a Moorish hotel, and after breakfast the next day casually decided to go off for a stroll. Whilst out, we thought we would pop in and pick up our hydrofoil tickets, and were told that it wasn't running because the sea was too rough. Instead, we could get a ferry, but in 30 minutes. We made our way back to the hotel by taxi to pick up our luggage, settle up and get back for the boat and onwards across the sea to Morocco. We made it in time and then had the pleasure of trying determinedly to play Scrabble on the top deck where there was some fresh air, despite our feet being suspended off the floor to avoid the carpet of seawater and vomit swishing beneath.
We made it to Tangier, where it was pouring with rain, and we had to disembark from the car deck as it wasn't safe to use the pedestrian exit. We walked off, along with the cars, lugging our trolley bags once again behind us, to then find out that we were supposed to have had our passports stamped on the boat on the 4th floor.
By this time, my stress levels were becoming quite extreme, and so Marg took the risk of taking both passports up on her own. When the going gets tough and maybe feels tougher for one, the other steps up and carries a bit more of the load. She could, after all, also negotiate in French. I remained on the boat and watched in wonder as cars and passengers loaded onto the car deck for the return voyage.
We made it off the ferry, somehow, with passports stamped, despite Jude not being present, and just in time before the horn sounded and the ferry slipped out of the harbour.
What Marg also chose not to tell me, and that the officials had ignored, was that in fact my passport was out of date.
We chose an afternoon drinking gin in the El Minza Hotel rather than go sightseeing in the extraordinarily unseasonal downpour. We then caught our sleeper train to Marrakesh, followed by a taxi on to Essaouria, where Jude spent much of our week being ill. The weather was inclement, to say the least. On arriving, we were met by quite biblical scenes of bridges washed down and the beach strewn with debris of all kinds.
When you read this, we will have actually made our 6th trip to Morocco, mixing it up amongst the minarets and the largest urban car-free Medina in the world that is Fez, and back to our beloved and magical Essaouria, where we will have sat atop the roofs on the terrace of our apartment, listening to the hubbub of a gentle, hypnotic music, workers going about their business, the laughter of children, a moped here, gulls there, then every few hours the call of prayer echoing around the Medina, the sun casting shadows across the tired walls, wood smoke wafting through the air from the chimneys, gently sipping fresh ginger tea to nurse our obligatory fragile stomachs, the warmth of the sun and tender breeze nurturing us through and through. A hammam where I get water thrown over me, black soap rubbed into me, and am scoured and pummeled almost to oblivion. I love them. There endeth the lesson. Tomorrow, tune in to share a song that I wrote when we returned for our 2nd trip to Essaouira. Thank you, Marg.
Thank you, Jude.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye for now.